Welcome back, beer tubers. Ryan here, back with another episode of San Diego Beer Vlog. Thanks for joining me. About time I reviewed this beer. This is the 2012 edition of the Bruery's Autumn Maple. This is their Belgian-style brown ale, or as they describe on the front of the label there, Belgian-style brown ale brewed with yams, molasses, maple syrup, and spices. So this is their obviously autumn release. You know, they don't do a pumpkin. Well, they do a pumpkin ale, but it's actually a pumpkin porter. But this is sort of their alternative to that. Alternative to the typical pumpkin beers you see out there. So this is a 10% bottle conditioned beer. Wow, you get a nice, like, almost 2 finger of just kind of tan head on there. It pours out pretty hazy. It's kind of like a dark burnt orange color to it, almost into lighter brown color. So yeah, wow, look at all that nice looking head there. It probably should leave some nice lacing. Touch alcohol legs. Let's get the aroma on it. A lot going on in the aroma. Definitely some sweetness in there. That's the first thing you notice. There's certainly yams there. You get that yam character right away. There's like a floral note. I'm starting to pick up some cinnamon, nutmeg, those kind of typical pumpkin ale spices. You get a little bit of like brown sugar notes in there. There's some of that slightly phenolic yeast character as well. There's some breadiness to it, nuttiness. It's got a lot going on. Let's dig in. Cheers. Yeah, that's a great beer. I have a feeling I'm gonna get a little more alcohol, but as it goes. But right there, at first sip, it's a really smooth beer for 10%. Just nice complexity to it. It's got big sweetness up front, but then it finishes dry. So up front, you get some good carbonation, help clean the palate. Then you're hit with a good amount. Well, right before there's this big sweetness, just like a little touch of like a bitterness to it. I don't know if that's coming from the spices they use or maybe a little bit of a hop character. Not entirely sure. But it's sort of like this kind of earthy, just very quick bitterness, then big sweetness. You know, the maple syrup I think might come through as more of like a brown sugary. You sort of get that nice brown sugar character to it. A little bit of that darker character from the molasses. And it's got just a big sweet bready. And the yam character comes in through with the sweetness. So it's almost like you took your yam, you know, baked it, got a little bit of caramelization in there, added maybe a little brown sugar to sweeten it up. You kind of get that right in the middle of that beer. The first time I had this beer, I thought it had too much yam character. It was almost like you're drinking like sweet potato French fries or something like that. But they seem to have dialed that back. The spices aren't overly prominent. I think last year's batch had more of a spice character to it. That more traditional cinnamon, nutmeg, allspice kind of character seems to be. It's there, but it's a little more buried within the beer. In some respects, it's more integrated into the beer. But I would like to have maybe a little touch more in the back end. I think you pick more of the Belgian yeast character up. You get that nice kind of spicy, slowly phenolic character right at the end. It helps dry the beer out after that big initial sweetness. For 10%, you get a touch of alcohol taste in the back end, but it goes down pretty smooth overall. Along with that yeast character, you get a little bit of like a nuttiness, and that may be coming from some nutmeg in the beer. It's got some really nice complexity to it. It's really nicely balanced overall. It's one of those beers, well, I'd like to have more of a spice character, but then, you know, in terms of like brewing up a very nicely balanced beer, it doesn't quite fit to that mold. So they did nail a good balance, I think, this year between the yam character and the spice character, and just letting that kind of Belgian brown ale base underneath with that sweeter brown sugary molasses character just kind of all mingle really well. So I don't know if this is my favorite batch. I think I might have liked last year's a bit more. So for the 2012, I'm going to go A-. This is a really interesting beer. It's a unique beer. You don't see a lot of yam beers. and it's a good alternative to pumpkin beers. At 10%, it's pretty drinkable stuff. And this is a beer you can age. It's bottle conditioned, it's high alcohol. This is something that I believe I still have a bottle or two of last year's, so I might have to open one soon just to see how it ages. But I think this is a beer that potentially could be a nice ageable beer. So that's going to wrap it up for Autumn Maple from the Bruery. Until next time, please comment and subscribe. Cheers.